Good morning, everybody. We're back at it again with another video, and this one is going to be about the brand new weapon, the Flail. Now, before we start talking about the Flail, I would like to let you guys know that the information that we have about it is limited. We only have the main 6 abilities and the 2 ultimates at the bottom. We don't have the information of all of the passives, all of the upgrades for the abilities, right? And we don't have the information about the passives that are in between the abilities. All we got is the abilities and their animation to see how fast they work and how they perform. And just by looking at it, it just looks phenomenal. But without making this any longer, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did. And here we are. So the first thing that I want to show you guys, the weapon is actually called Flail and Shield. But there is one thing, you are not forced to use a shield with this weapon. You can go ahead and use every single one of the abilities without the necessity of the shield. Although there are some abilities like this one right here, and maybe that passive over there, that will do some sort of bonuses, some sort of interaction if you are wearing a shield yourself. But unlike the sword, all of the abilities are usable because none of the abilities forces you to use the shield. This weapon scales primarily with strength and secondary with focus, but we already knew that. Now, let's go ahead and jump onto the first ability. The first ability is called Arcane Smite. You leap forward and strike the ground with an arcane force, dealing 130% weapon damage to all targets within 2.7 meters of impact, leaving behind a hazardous area at the impact point that inflicts a stack of impairment for 6 seconds to all of the targets that enter. Now, impairment is a brand new debuff that it come from the Flail. I don't know if any other weapon is gonna have this. The same way that our Void Gauntlet has Disintegrate is a weapon specific debuff. But anyways, impairment says that it deals 10% arcane weapon damage per second, and it inflicts weaken, reducing the base damage by 10%. So it's basically a 10% weaken and a 10% dot. And it can stack to a maximum of 3 times, meaning that you can have a potential 30% weaken and a 30% damage over time dot on enemies at any given time if you are to hit them with the abilities. Now, I know that right here it says you lead forward to the ground with arcane force, dealing 130% weapon damage. Every single one of the Flail abilities deals arcane damage. Now, we don't know if arcane damage is going to be 100% of the weapon damage, or maybe it's going to be half arcane and half a strike, given that it's a blunt weapon. But we don't know that yet. All we know for a fact is that every single one of the abilities will be dealing arcane damage. We just don't know if it is going to be pure arcane or arcane and strike. Now, this is the first ability over here. If we are to look at the passives, this one down here, it looks like it's going to give you some sort of cooldown whenever you use the ability, or whenever you hit an enemy with the ability, it will give you some cooldowns back. On the second passive, it looks like a little symbol of a round shield, a kite shield, and a tower shield. So maybe if you're wearing a shield, you will get some sort of bonuses for this ability. Or maybe it depends on the type of shield that you're wearing, and it will do a different thing for every single one of those shields. The last symbol that we see over here, this is the Invigorated and Vigor symbol, which is the hourglass with a little arrow down below. This symbol represents you getting rid of debuffs quicker, like rends, anti-healing, weakening, etc. Right? So this is right here a Invigorated / Vigor effect. And this is a cooldown effect. You guys see that it's the same hourglass with the arrow pointing below, but here it has like the sand in it, and here it has the downward arrow, right? If it has the sand, this means cooldown reduction. If it has this symbol, that means that you get rid of your debuff quicker. So either it is a cleansing, or whenever you hit an enemy, you get rid of your debuff, or if allies are inside the circle. Like I said, we don't know about it yet, but this is just a speculation given the symbols that they have decided to use for this ability. This ability has a 17-second cooldown, and it also has grit. It's a pretty cool looking ability, and we're gonna jump onto the second one. The second ability is called Arcane Vortex. This one has a 15-second cooldown, and it says swirl the flails above the player's head, dealing 4 rapid hits of 85% weapon damage in a 3-meter radius around the player. So it's basically a cyclone. After the first spin is completed, you trigger a 3-meter blast of energy, granting 10% in power for 5 seconds to all of the allies, including yourself, inside of the radius. And this ability also has a grid. Now, if we look at the passive below this ability, this one is some sort of entanglement. It's either a root whenever you hit the enemy with it, or potentially a slow. This speedy boots right here, this is definitely going to be a haste. So whenever you use this ability, you're gonna get some sort of haste. And the last symbol right here, it looks like well, a celebrating dude with a couple of stars next to him. So it is this either a regenerating, like you get health over time, you either cleanse yourself, or you get some sort of healing. This is one of the first time that we see this symbol, so we don't really know what it could be. So it's definitely something beneficial for the user. And the third ability for the cleric side is called Arcane Eruption. This one is on a short cooldown, only with 11.4. And it says it drags the head of the flail against the ground, causing an eruption of arcane energy in front of the player, dealing 125% weapon damage, and immediately inflicting 2 stack of impermanent for 6 seconds to all of the targets that it hit. So it will immediately apply a 20% weaken and a 20% damage over time debuff on the enemies, as many as you hit. Automatically follows up with an additional melee attack that deals 160% weapon damage. So if you hit 2 hits with this one, which is the animation, right, you will do a total of 285% weapon damage. And if you hit both hits, you will immediately apply that 20% weaken and that 20% damage over time. And this ability looks that is phenomenal, just because it simply has a very, very short cooldown, very high damage, and also a 20% weaken. This is going to be a very, very good choice if you probably will be building the flail with a damage, a damage goal. Now, the passive that we have here for Arcane Eruption, this one seems to be that whenever you hit an enemy, you will apply a debuff to them that slows them down, reduce their movement speed. There's another passive right here that is an hourglass with cooldown, and it seems to have the flail. So probably this is whenever you hit an enemy with a basic attack, it reduces the cooldown of this ability, so you can keep on pumping. And this one over here, it probably looks like a chain healing. So whenever you hit enemies with this ability, you will probably activate some sort of chain healing for yourself or your allies. So this looks very positive. This seems to be a cooldown with your basic attacks, and this seems to be some sort of a slow whenever you hit the enemies with this ability. And the ultimate for the cleric side is called Better Together. So while within 4 meters of 1 or more allies, you grant a passive healing to self and your allies that heal you for 60% weapon damage every 2 seconds. So essentially it's 8% weapon damage every second. Now these ultimate healing scales exclusively with focus, meaning that if you're going to be using this ultimate, it's preferred if you were to be a focus main healer with a supporting flail and shield. And this essentially is basically like a mini beacon. So if you put a beacon on your allies and you are fighting with a flail right next to them with Better Together, well, guess what? You have like a big beacon and a mini beacon, and it's a 4-meter radius, which is a pretty significant radius, right? You are a mini beacon because the healing is not as strong as the beacon, but the range still is a pretty significant, pretty good range. And 4 meters is way more than enough. It's more than we could ever ask. Now let's go ahead and jump into the passive, what I think they will be. So the first passive that we see up here, it has a little HP with a sprinting. So either whenever you are sprinting, your HP regeneration is quicker, or something related to that, or depending on your HP is the movement speed that you have. This right here, it has a weight symbol with a cooldown hourglass next to it. So probably depending on your weight, if you're medium, light, or heavy, depending what type of cooldowns you will be obtaining from that passive. This passive right here, it is the stamina passive that is pretty good. This one right here, I have never seen this before. Maybe it's like some sort of some sort of like maybe you sacrifice a little bit of movement for more damage or more healing, or I again, this is just open for interpretation. I have never seen this symbol. I have not even a remote idea what it could be. Probably like endure pain, some sort of fortifications. We don't really know what it is, but I'm excited to see what this symbol will be. Down here we have a Ren with you know, just the Ren symbol, and we have a little man running here away from the teammates, and it looks like you have some sort of movement and speed, and there's some people left behind. I don't know exactly what the 2 people left behind with the waiting emote is, but whatever it is, it looks like you are going to get some sort of movement speed just by running towards your, or away from your allies, away from the enemies. We don't know exactly what that one will be, but it's definitely related to some sort of movement speed. That does it for the Cleric side. Now let's go ahead and jump into the Bastion. For the Bastion side, the first ability that we have is called Barrage. It's a 23.8 second cooldown, so this is a relatively long cooldown ability, but it says they sprint forward up to 10 meters upon reactivating the ability, which is pressing basic attack or reaching the end of the sprint. You will leap forward an additional 6 meters and slam the ground, dealing 30% weapon damage to targets in range of the flail during the leap, and 80% weapon damage upon landing, and also staggering the targets on impact. And as you guys can see right there, it says character collision is disabled while sprinting forward, meaning that you can use this ability while body block, or you can simply use this ability to go through many enemies without being stopped. If you want to use this ability to go through a gating OPR, or if you're simply just being overrun and outnumbered by enemies, you can use this ability, and it will be like burnout, it will be like flesh, you go right through the enemies. It's a mobility ability, and that is why it has that 23.8 second cooldown. Now the ability only deals a potential 110% weapon damage, but the reason that it deals so little weapon damage is because it has a stagger, and it also a very good mobility ability. The passive for these abilities, we have a couple down here. So the first one, it seems that you get some sort of fortification on use or whenever you hit an enemy. Here we have the little shield symbol. Once again, it has the round, the kite, and the tower. So depending on the shield that you're using, it's probably going to interact with this ability. Over here we have an arrow hitting something, so meaning if you hit an enemy with the ability, something is happening. Either you're going to do more damage to them, you're going to slow them down. I don't even know what this arrow means, but it definitely has to do something with you connecting with the enemy. And down here at the end, we have an empowering little fist with a little burst around it. I don't know, probably that's going to be an empowerment not only for you but also for your teammates. That little fist with the empower, we've seen it before. We have another fist with empowerment right here, but it's slightly a different symbol. So, but we're gonna cover that in a second from now, and that is the ability Barrage, which is the mobility one. The next ability that we have right here is called Trip. This one also is in a 17-second cooldown. You swing the flail forward, latching onto a target, dealing 50% weapon damage and knocking them to the ground. Now, this is essentially like a mini sweep, like from the spear, on a 17-second cooldown. I don't know if it is going to be a single target or if it's going to be AoE. On the animation, you do an AoE swipe in front of you, so it will probably be like a less range sweep. So if you have the enemies directly in front of you, you will knock them down. But if they're to the right or to the left, you won't be able to knock them down, just because sweep has a very wide, range around the target. But this one is pretty much in front of them. The animation is very quick, it's very nice. I really like this ability. The passive of this ability, once again, it has the hourglass with a little flail. So maybe the basic attacks will reduce the cooldown of this ability. Down here, we have a Ren, or I don't know what it is. Maybe all of the targets that you hit with it will have a Ren. And then right here, it has the symbol of the flail, probably just simply increasing the damage of this ability, or maybe if you hit the enemy at the end of the ability, it will cause some extra damage. That's as much as I can get from that little picture right there. And well, there you go. That is the 1cc ability called Trip from the Flail. And the last ability of Bastion right here is called Warding Bludgeon. I don't even know how to say that word. On a 21-second cooldown, and it says you perform a spinning leap, then swing the flail down to strike the targets, dealing 100% weapon damage. While leaping, you trigger a burst of energy, granting a reinforced fortify to yourself and all of the allies that are within 3 meters of the player, increasing the armor by 50% for 8 seconds or until 3 hits are taken. And this ability has grit. So this is a pretty good supporting ability right here for both PvP and PvE. And for the passive underneath of it, once again, we see the little hand is some sort of like pain suppression. So once again, if you get hit by it, you probably, if you get hit during the animation, you'll probably get some bonuses, or maybe you get some resistances. Once again, we don't know what that symbol means, but it has to do something with some good things that you get for your character, maybe through pain, by receiving damage, or while getting hit. And down here we have a little necklace with a broken heart. So I don't know if this, I mean, it's green, so I don't know if this is for ourselves, like it gives us health, it gives us true health, or maybe it could be against the enemy. Maybe it inflicts an anti-healing on the enemy. Maybe it's like the enemy cannot get healed for a couple of seconds. I don't really know what that symbol represents, but it has to be something with HP, something with healing, regenerating. But now I don't know exactly if it is for ourselves or if it is for the enemy, given that is a broken heart, and well, a broken heart usually doesn't mean something good. Now we're gonna go ahead and move to the ultimate side of the Bastion here, and it is called Human Shield. Human Shield, it says hitting a target with an ability, so just abilities, not basic attacks, while within 6 meters of an ally, apply a status effect linking yourself and a single ally to each other for 5 seconds. While the effect is active, the ally will only take 50% of the upcoming damage, and causing you to inherit 35% of the incoming damage that they didn't take. So for example, let's say that you use an ability and you hit an enemy and you link yourself with an ally. So if the ally was to receive 1,000 damage, well, they will only receive 500, and the 500 that he didn't receive, you will only receive 35% of that. So now you are not receiving 35% of 1,000, you're only receiving 35% of 500, because you only receive 35% of the damage that he didn't take, not the damage that he took. So basically, it's only 35% of 500, which you end up mitigating an insane amount of damage with a Human Shield. If you are playing this with a friend, or let's say that your teammate is a healer and he's getting pressured by an enemy, you can simply go next to your healer, use an ability, hit the enemy, immediately linking yourself with your healer. Now your healer has an amazing time, because the healer can simply sit there on top of a sacred ground, just taking 50% of the damage that they will initially take. So the sacred ground will pretty much heal them without the healer having to do anything. And now the healer can focus on healing the teammate that is sacrificing himself to protect the healer. And this not only applies for a healer, that was just an example. If you're playing a very aggressive comp, like let's say a sword and shield and a spear, and you're like a flail and sword and shield, or like a flail and light staff, you can simply just link to your friend, and all of a sudden now you guys are just a powerhouse, rushing through the enemies, only taking a fraction of the damage. Now these are all of the abilities for both both clerics and the Bastion. And for me, this looks phenomenal. For me, this looks insane. For the Bastion side of the passes right here, we have a dude with HP symbol in the middle of the picture. Now if you guys pay close attention to that symbol, it shows the HP bar is about half. So probably whenever you are about half HP, you either get some HP regeneration, you get probably some HP, or you might get some fortifications. On the right side, once again, we have the vigor / invigorating symbol right here, which it will probably just remove or reduce the amount of time that the dots last on you. That is pretty handy. Once again, we have the symbol of the shield right here, but now as you guys can see, that one is a passive. So maybe this passive right here is the one passive that enables you to wear shields with this weapon. That is just an speculation. I don't know. Maybe you can wear shields without having to pick this. Or maybe what these do is if you are wearing a shield, maybe you get some sort of bonuses, which in my opinion is a pretty good deal. Down here, we have the stamina symbol once again. It's like right at 40%. So either this stamina symbol is something that takes stamina away from the enemy, or maybe whenever you drop below a certain amount of stamina, you get some sort of stamina regenerations. Anyways, it has to do something with stamina 100%. And then the last two symbols that we have right here, they are identical. Obviously, Chad, this was done a while back. Probably some of these pictures, some of the symbols have already been updated, and probably some of the abilities as well. The number has been tweaked here and there, because this is somewhat, just because we got this information yesterday does not mean that this is the most up-to-date information that we have. So probably some of the symbols have already changed, representing a different thing. Right now they look like a broken sort of empowerment. It's a different symbol than the regular empowerment, so maybe this reduces the damage that the enemy deals to you, or maybe this is something that gives you more damage. But that's it. That's pretty much it for every single one of the abilities and the passives and the ultimate for the flail and the shield. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I'm blown away, chat. I'm blown away, boys, because this weapon, it looks fast, it looks fun, it looks interactive, it looks powerful, it looks like it can be used everywhere and anywhere. It can be used in PvP, it can be used in PvE, it can be used in war, all PRs, you name it. It seems like it is a perfect weapon for this game. And the fact that it's a melee weapon dealing arcane damage, which we were like, well, we're still missing arcane damage, we're still missing lightning damage. Where the hell are these weapons? So everybody thought that, well, if it's going to be an arcane damage, it then is going to be a magical weapon, like a book or like a staff or like a gauntlet. But no, they went ahead, did a freaking elemental melee weapon damage, and for me that is so freaking cool. And I am super excited to see how this weapon actually works. And I cannot wait to try this weapon in the PTR, so we can immediately start theory crafting to see which weapon is going to be the one that is going to be pairing the best with a flail. Right now, I have 3 builds in my head, given that the weapon scales with strength and it scales with focus. The first build that I have in my head is obviously sword and shield and flail and shield. That way you do not have to change, your shield. So you can have a shield that has, for example, enchanted, vicious, and even keen, right? That way it will benefit both the sword and the flail, and you don't have to swap weapons. The second weapon that I'm thinking of mixing with this weapon will be the spear, because once again they both scale with the strength. And you guys saw the sweep from the flail. You also have a sweep from the spear. You guys saw the speeding ability with the flail, which the spear also has a cyclone. So you could have two leg sweep. You can have 2 cyclones. It is just gonna be so freaking fun doing this CC combos. And the last build that I have, of course, will be with a light staff, playing a very aggressive build, probably playing with all together since the scale exclusively with focus. And you can play a super heavy, mega aggressive healing flail build that I cannot wait to also try. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button down there. It really helps the channel. And don't forget that we stream every day on Twitch. By the time this video come out, I will probably be streaming, so don't forget to check the descriptions down below for the links. Leave a comment, let me know what you think about the weapon. Let me know what weapon combinations you already have in mind. What are you thinking about? I cannot wait to see and read them all. And That's it. That's it. That's all I got for the Flail. See you guys on the next video or in Eternum or in the stream. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye.